I thought I had saw something earlier when we did an extract. So I'm gonna CD to DGW spool. Again, that's where all of the log files from the nightly or any of the extracts land in there.
Yeah, the one that we were looking at earlier.
What?
Yeah, the one that we were looking at earlier is on our production.
Right. Yeah, I
Okay.
wanted to show you one here on test though.
Okay.
So you see a bunch of RAD 30s and DAP 22s, and so those are our main guys. So and this is one that I ran this morning when we did that student. I wanted to show you something real quick in there. So I mentioned about the CPU count, and if you notice here, it's got this command called RAD 30 worker count, and they've actually changed the nomenclature a little bit. They still call them CPUs, but that's what they mean here. So notice in our test environment, you've got 30 and 10 RAD 30s going on. So a couple of things. First of all, on your current system in 416, that's controlled by this file, and we might as well just look at this file. It's called dwenv.config. Let's see. Where is it? I know I found it a while ago. It's at the top level test4 directory. Okay, in this file, it sets a whole bunch of environment variables. And one of those is this thing called the CPU count. And you can see all these, it's setting up all these DAP 10s and DAP 08s and what port you use and all that kind of stuff. This is where, let's see, your email server is set up. You just get that email. And in here is a variable called DGW CPU count. And so you can read here, it's a number of parallel processors that run. Again, in the old days, it actually looked at physical CPUs. That's not really the case anymore. So that's why they're kind of calling it worker counts. Well, in your current 416 version, it's got this file, and this file probably, Jeff, is exactly like this. I would bet you have that same line in this file.
Yep.
And that's the one I'd like to change that and try it and do some testing of it and see what happens.
Okay.
But that being said, and I'll make note of this in my write-up for you guys, but starting and I think it started with 502, but that is no longer pulled from right there. There's actually a system variable now that controls this. It's in controller, and it's called, it's a mouthful, integration.capture.multithreading number of threads. So this is the old CPU count right here. And so as you can see, it's set to 10. So when we looked at your log file and it said number of workers set to 10, that's where this is coming from. Now in, again, 416, you've got to set it in dwenv.config. And then when you set that, then you got to shut everything down and shut it and start it back up again for dwenv.config to come into play. But I think that'd be something to test. Maybe set it to maybe a mid-range 4 or 6 or something like that. And let's try it tonight and see what happens. See if it speeds you up a little bit.
Okay. Do that. Thank you.
I also still think there's an issue with, for the most part, but I think I saw where it was 8. Only 8 of your students did not get brought over. That just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm wondering if you've got something else set. Now, and let me hammer through a couple of these real quick. So we talked about the hash value. Does everybody understand that if a change doesn't happen in Banner, nothing gets brought over? So that's what I'm a little bit concerned about on your production system. Why did everybody get brought over? I just don't think that number should be that high right now. And it's based on changes happening in Banner. Okay. Here's something else I want you to add into your toolbox of tricks. There is a way to go around that hash value. And you may wonder, well, why would I ever want to do this? Well, this could be something like if you wanted to test this situation tonight, we could turn this on and test. It's a environment variable, so it's only on while you as a particular user are logged in. Once you log out, then it goes away. And so say you want to guarantee that students get extracted, but you don't want it to worry about the hash value or anything like that. I want to make sure that I'm extracting the students I think I'm extracting. Turn that on and test your extract. Now, for those of you that are going to be working on the band 80 commands, I use this all the time. I'll turn it on, and then because you're going to continually keep extracting, testing that band 80. And so you want to make sure you're not getting in a situation that the extract is not happening because of the hash value. I wish and I hope that one day they put that flag in transit so that you can run a forced extract, but they haven't yet. But I think that would be a good idea if they did. But put that in your bag of tricks, or at least maybe tuck it away in a memory bank somewhere. Yeah, that guy was talking about forcing an extract, and this is how you do it. So let's try it, and I just want to kind of show you what happened. So let's go back to DGW spool. And I'm gonna try to grab whatever that last students that we did. So here's this guy right here. So when we do and let's just see if it runs. So we get the command, we get the message that no changes were made to the student data. Okay, so now it's got to all be caps just like that. Now let's try that banner extract. Get my mouse to work right. And by the way, I know that it's extracting it because it called DAP22, and now you see it worked. I can run it again. Whoops. And the same thing, it'll automatically extract. It'll keep doing it until I turn that variable off or I log out right here. Now this only impacts me and nothing else. I mentioned earlier, I said I know that it ran because DAP22 runs. DAP22 is only going to run if you extract, if the extract works. Now, does everybody remember DAP22? Remember, that's one of our 2 test questions. DAP22 creates the audit. So RAD30 pulls it over. DAP22 actually runs an audit. Now, if you're looking at a student on here, think of this as RAD30 because that's what that happens. And you probably have a process new button right here. That's DAP22. Okay, so RAD30, probably going to say nothing, no changes were made. And then process new. You can do a process new whenever you want to. Remember when I said that about earlier today about the table DAP audit detail being a queue? Well, every time I'm running, every running time I do it, press that right there or do a DAP 22, that queue is getting one audit's going in and one audit's going out. Let's see if I can view my history. View history looks at my queue. So you can see that, and this student is actually one that has 2 degrees. So that's why he's got 4 in the queue out there. But you can see that these just ran a few minutes ago. I'll give it a minute or two. We run another one of those would be gone and the next one would pop up. Okay, so everything kind of ties together in that respect. All right, so all that being said, I'm concerned about your prod. Why was it extracting everybody like that? So Jeff, if you don't mind, can we go back and take a look at get on the prod system and let's take a look and let's see what's maybe dig into deeper as to what's going on there. I'll hand it back.
Let
Yeah.
me share my screen. Sure. Okay. Whoops. Can you see my screen or no?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is the
yeah.
text...
So it looks like you were looking at the. So did you just set that to 5? Just then?
I did.
Okay. Yeah. So and this may be a sticky situation. The system we need to bring DegreeWorks up and down and back up. So you may not be able to do that until, you know, I don't know if you do that over the weekend or if you can do that at night or how that works, but that's.
Are you talking about balancing the database and then doing the web? You
actually have to do a complete restart on DegreeWorks, like bring, what is it? Are you using WebLogic or is it Tomcat or?
Oh, the Tomcat?
Yeah, you'll have to bring Tomcat down and back up. So it's a destructive bring down. I mean, so it's not something you want to do during the middle of a day.
Right.
But that should make things work a little better for you. But now, so let's take a look at your banner students.sql file again.
Okay.
Should be in just the SQL directory.
Is the text too small?
No, I mean I can read it. I mean I want to about other folks.
Oh wait, this is let's see. Yeah.
No, this is it.
That's it. Yeah. So
how do students get put into that? Okay, you said that's a view. That's right. That's a view that's getting created.
Right. So we could just, I guess we could just be grabbing IDs out of the.
Now, do you think?
Out of Sprighton.
Yeah, I mean you could. Do you think that view? Maybe let's go look at that view again. Is it looking at just modified records, or I mean that may be why all 7,000 were pulled in.
Well, it's looking at a lot of stuff that belongs to the student, but the thing that we're pulling is just the ID from the student.
Right. Yeah, let's go back to your.
Let's see. Yeah, so
I just happened to notice your email there, Jeff. That's exactly the kind of problem I want to try to help you solve today. That's very appropriate right there.
Oh, I did not get to see the email.
It was something about a banner student not extracting correctly. So.
Yeah, because sometimes we have to bring them over manually, especially if the ID is really old or.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's...
Yeah, so it's pulling this ID from you.
Okay, hold on right there. And okay. So it's not what I'm looking for to see if it's looking for any kind of change or anything like that. It doesn't look like that is. It's just pulling them all over.
Yeah, it's just pulling out data for this view, but
yeah,
the thing we're only grabbing is the ID.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But how is it
kind of to get the ones that are registered, the ones that are registered?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because one of the things that schools are dealing with is that they're getting fraudulent applications. So they apply, but they never register. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Can you keep going down a little bit further?
So we're getting the term code, still level stuff. So it's basically getting a profile of the student.
Do you guys use this view for something else also, or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I use it for different things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is kind of overkill for just bringing the ID back.
Yeah. Well, we just want to make sure that they're registered.
Okay.
Yeah. That they're in the system. User. But yeah, we can come up with another. Yeah, we played around with different, and this was a while back, a long time ago. We played around with different. Let's see, like this one here. We tried this one for a while, and this one just took forever. This is way back 13.
Oh yeah, and that's gonna bring back everybody then.
Yeah. But yeah, if you have other recommendations.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to look for it at lunch, but let me look for that. Got some SQL to help. I'll look after we get done today.
All right.
Okay. Okay, but at least the increasing the CPUs ought to help some.
Oh yeah, yeah, that should help. Actually, it probably should help quite a lot, actually.
Yeah. So now, if you will, go ahead and go to DGW spool, and I'll jump forward a little bit. So as I was saying, the RAD30 is half of the battle. The other half is the DAP22. And so let's take a look at that DAP22, that last DAP22 file you have as well. So anything that gets extracted, RAD30, then goes through the processor to do a new audit. And so this works the same way. If you've got that CPU counts at 10, it'll split this thing up. And so what it's going through here is creating a redoing the audit for all these things. So you kind of go to the end of the file, and now in here, let me back up for a second. In your RAD30, if you see an error in that file, in fact, if you see an error for one student, more than likely you'll see an error for all students. There's an issue, and you need to do something about it. Maybe your band 80 SQL is wrong, or maybe your banner extract SQL is wrong. In here, DAP22 is a little different story. You're going to see errors in here probably. Now, since your population, you're pulling over the newest students, that may not be the case, but say, for example, if a student has a degree of an AST like you have there, but has an old catalog that you haven't ascribed for, they'd get an error in here. It'd keep going, but you just see that error. So that's not as critical as if you see an error in RAD 30. So you see there it said 4 hours. So it took another 4 hours for this thing to run. So you're bumping up a good 8 hours of runtime, looks like. So,
yeah.
I think they're together. I don't think that first was just for RAD was. I thought.
Okay.
But that should also be increased by increasing the CPU count.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can definitely look at that.
Okay. So I'm going to take back the sharing.
Yep.
Okay. So as I mentioned, you get a message now with 503 that the student didn't get extracted. So that's a good thing. Otherwise, you didn't really know. Okay, log files are stored there. And again, there's a path. I forgot what they're called. That'll take you right to DGW Spool if you're logged into DW Admin as you've been doing. Okay. Okay, we talked about that. I'm going to make sure I hit everything. Okay, you can also go in and delete IDs using that same banner extract command through some either, again, second parameter being who it is you want to delete. You know, if you've got a bunch of old records out there, you may want to take a look at that and clean that up a little bit. You may want to, I've seen schools take this SQL here and do something like if the student doesn't have any frozen audits, then delete them, or doesn't have any exceptions, delete them. So again, frozen audits and exceptions and notes are what you have to watch out for there. Okay, now all that being said, and I think Jeff, you kind of spilled the beans earlier this morning. The actual banner extract, they're apparently going to phase out of it at some point in time with this new command called launch job. Now, I'll tell you, I have not used launch job. I've used it once or twice to test to make sure I can do it, but it is so much easier just to use the banner extract command. With this launch job, you have to create this, what they're calling a JSON file, and the file has to look something like this. And then you launch job with that particular JSON job. Now, supposedly then you can see the output in transit. Now, that sounds fine, and I guess that would be fine for a cron tab job. I could see doing it in there so that you wouldn't have to get on the system to look at the output. But if you're on the command line, why the heck do you want to have to jump over into transit to look at the job when you can just go to DGW spool? So I'm not quite following the logic there, but I just wanted to make you aware and have this in there that you may see that. If you follow the e-communities or look in the documentation, if they ever start talking about launch job again, you can say, oh, that guy mentioned launch job. And so I don't know if they're going to ever actually replace the banner extract command, but so far they have not said they would. Now, one thing they did do, and I apologize, Jeff, I'm going to ask you to take over again and go into transit. One thing they did make in web transit, a new thing that they've done, is they've split out the RAD 30 in your current transit on the PC version of transit. You just want, there's one RAD 30, one banner extract. And now, if you'll go to jump over to transit, the web transit. So now going down a little bit, you're going to see a bunch of different RAD jobs. Go back up a little bit. You'll see RAD 30, 31, 32. All those are split out into their own thing. So actually in the past, you couldn't do a staff extract from transit, but now you can. So if Jeff gets a new employee, he wants to make him into a red user, you can just run banner extract staff right there, put in the guy's ID and then run it. Same if you have a new applicant advisor. So
Okay.
So as you get new advisors, this is one way you can get them now into DegreeWorks, is just run a RAD 31 on them from transit.
Cool.
So how did you guys put advisors in the past? Did it do it from the command line or what?
Yeah, generally from the command line.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
you can actually give access to a registrar office member now, and they can do it here themselves.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if you feel like that's appropriate. So.
If they are willing to do it.
Yeah. That is correct. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool.
So let's see. While we're on your system, let's go ahead and, while we're on your screen, let's look at your nightly cron tab job. Let's take a look at it real quick.
Nightly what?
Your cron job, your nightly cron job here on prod.
Yeah.
I got cron tab.
The show. So.
Okay.
One.
Okay. So you're doing the app restart, web restarts. Okay. So then you're doing an extract of course, and I haven't talked about banner extract course today, but really all that does is take all of your banner courses in banner and repopulates that table in DegreeWorks. There's that RAD course master that I mentioned earlier, and it's just rewriting it every time. It's not a bad idea to run every night. A lot of schools maybe do it once a month, but you can do it every night. Same with the curriculum rules. Usually if you do a course extract, right after that you want to do a curriculum rule and a equivalency extract, which is what you're doing there. Okay. Now you're just moving on down, your UCX 12 job. That's being phased out, I think. What that did was update the pick list in the PC tools. So from what I understand, that's not going to be appropriate anymore. It's still in 503, so there's nothing wrong with running it, but I don't think, and it only takes a second or two to run.
Right.
DAP 16, that's what that does is parse all your scribe blocks. Again, maybe you may not have to do that every night. It doesn't take very long. So RAD restart, I think that's not really used anymore. So
really?
I'm not even sure what that is. So, and then you've commented out your banner extract advisor,
Yeah.
and there's your student, And you don't need a staff. Typically, you don't do a staff.
Yeah.
And then you've got your gap restarts and web restarts. And okay, then you're doing the remove moldy files. All those commands do, or they go to that directory and remove any files that are 30 days old. So that's a good thing. That's good that you're cleaning that out. Okay, and you're cleaning out log detail. Okay, that's good too. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's all good. Good cleanup work there. Okay. So one thing that and then you're emailing it, and y'all are checking your email every day to see if the jobs are in, I'm sure. So,
right.
and which is kind of a misnomer. What you really need is that RAD 30 log file. That's really what you need. I've seen schools go for weeks with that thing getting an error, but the message they're getting here says the job ran. And when they actually look in the log file, though, it had an error. It's had an error for a while. So not a bad idea to check that RAD 30 log every once in a while. So,
okay.
So one thing I was looking for here is the CPA process. You know, you guys have all those values set to yes. So it's not running. And I think that's probably a good thing right now. There's a separate process. And when we get to talking about reporting, I'll show you what that is. But just leave it as now it's not running. So that's probably a good thing. So
that's the CPA process, you said?
Yeah, it's to create those CPA records, and I don't remember.
Yeah. Right.
Somebody went out and said you guys had 37 million. I think you said.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, that process isn't. You can have that thing running all the time, and it doesn't. It's not running for you right now all the time. The command is res start, res start, and it doesn't. And I was looking to see if it was in your nightly cron job, and it's not. So that's probably a good thing. Now, and we were looking at test, or when all those flags are set to yes in prod, that may not be the case. You may not have them all set to yes. We'll look at that later. So,
okay. And it's probably okay to truncate that table, right?
Yes. Yeah. The gap results detail. Yeah.
Result. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one you can certainly clean it out. I know some schools run it like once a semester, run a CPA process, and then download that file like to the National Student Clearinghouse. And I don't know if any of you, but I mean, they'll have a separate report that they create that run it or send it to the clearinghouse. But you need to rerun it anyways. And so it'll overwrite any records that are already out there, and if they're not out there, it'll just write them. So you should be fine to truncate it.
Yeah. Okay.
So
let's stop sharing, or do you want?
if you want to stop sharing, I'll take it back.
Okay.
What I'm doing here. Okay, so just to everybody see that?
Yeah.
Just kind of a overview of all that happens when you run a banner extract. I know this is a really busy screen, but just think of it as it's either through a cron job or transit, or you can even think of it through the command line. It's going to run an SQL or just have a direct ID file or what have you. And then depending on the type of extract it is, it's actually going to call a C program with one of these numbers. And I'm displaying this to you right now because we're about to go into the second part of the extract, and that is what it is we're getting out of the extract, which is in this file, this banner extract.config file, which Jeff, you mentioned earlier in the day. So if it's a student extract, it'll call this program called band 40. If it's a course extract, band 41, and on down the line. and then loads those tables based on whichever one of these C programs is getting called. So think of it as the whole thing we've talked about so far is the type of extract it's going to be, and then who is going to be extracted. And so we've kind of got that all squared away. Now let's talk about what is actually getting extracted. What records within Banner are coming out. And that's all controlled by this now system variable called bannerextract.config. Let's see what my next slide says. It just mentions all the different tables. So bannerextract.config, it's really, like I said here, what gets brought over. So let's go ahead and take a look at it again. And apologize for having to throw all this lingo at you, but similar to the SHEP config in that it used to be a file. In production, it's a file out there called bannerextract.config. Now it's in controller. And so it lives within controller within the database. So within controller, I'm going to go and I'm just going to look for, I think I can just look for extract and it'll bring it up. Integration.bannerextract.config. So I'm going to click on this greater than sign, click on the pencil. Very similar to that SHEP config. It's an editable window here, but like earlier, I'm going to select all, and then I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to copy it out to Notepad. Okay, what in the world is this crazy looking thing? So this is in DegreeWorks language, or whatever you want to call it. It's sort of SQL, but then it's sort of not SQL. So I don't have another way to put it, but it's this weird format. And so I'm going to pull this up, and at the same time, I'm going to go back to this slide, try to make it a little bit smaller. And really what I'm looking at here is these things, these numbers, if you can see those. Let me make this one a little bit smaller. So I mentioned if it's a student extract, it's band 40. Well, within this file, you will see certain areas that say band 40. Here's one of those. And so it's going to grab this snippet of code if it's a band 40 extract. Here's another one right here. You know, if it's a band 40, which is the student extract, it's going to go out from Gabu map or whatever you want to call it, and just pull everything out of that record. Now the PITM is implied, so think of it this way. So the SQL here is select star from Gabu map where the Gabu map PITM equals whatever PITM of that student's getting extracted at that point in time. So it goes through this file for every student and goes through each one of these things. Goremel may be a little bit easier one to understand. So again, it's going through Goremel and it's saying if that status indicator equals A, pull in, and I shouldn't say select star. It's got a predefined selection criteria within that C program that tells it what it is it wants to bring in here. Now, and it may or may not be all of the records in the table. Most of the time it is. So, but we can't control, for the most part, the select part. But what we can control is the where part. And the Goremel is a good example. By default, this is the where on that statement. If your status indicator is something else, then you can modify that to be something else, or actually to add more where statements. It's got to be in this format though, capital, whatever that snippet name is, and it's got to be just like they say here, and then the where statements. Looks like going through here, looks like you guys have made, or somewhere along the line, someone made some modifications to your table or to your extract. So it looks like your applicant extract. Way back when someone changed that a little bit to pull. I don't see right off the bat what the difference is, but you know, there was a change, and I've seen this quite a bit. So I think that whoever set all this up for you later on down the line maybe looked at the latest banner extract.config file and compared it to your file, and anything that wasn't in your file added on to it.
Yeah, because apparently that PA is the Pennsylvania SIG or something. And so,
okay.
I'm
not familiar who that would have been. So now I've only been with SIG a couple of years, but I know Dave has been there a long time and been doing. Yeah. Dave does a lot of work with banner extract files, as I do too, and you'll see he's very good about documenting what he did. But I'm not sure. I mean, that was 2009, so it's probably like maybe your second version or third version or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I mentioned earlier that you can't really change the what that's coming in. We've played around with it some, and there have been times where I'll just find one we just did last week. I'm going to find Sprite and where's my find button? The particular school I was working with wanted to, instead of pulling in their name, they wanted to pull in their preferred name. This was a school in Massachusetts. Apparently there's a law in Massachusetts now. You have to refer to a student as their preferred name, not their name that you have in the database. So they wanted that preferred name, maybe instead of Dennis, it was Joe or whatever. They wanted Joe to be everywhere. So what we did was we created a view here and just replaced in that view, replace the Spriden first name with the preferred name. You can do that, but just have to be careful in that it's looking for a byte size, a particular bytes in that return. So you have to make sure that any change you make like that is going to return the exact same number of bytes, or otherwise it'll throw everything off. Now, I mentioned earlier, when you're looking at the log files for the banner extract, this is where you would see an error. So say I made a typo and had maybe a bad SQL statement here or something. Whenever I tried to extract a student, I'd get an error right away in that banner extract, and it wouldn't work. So nothing would be extracted. So, for example, so when you get a request like Jeff you got earlier, why isn't the student getting extracted? What I would do in that case, the very first thing is I would, from the command line, run a banner extract student on that student, look at his log file, and see if some kind of error situation occurred. And it's probably the thing that you said, in that it's the age, it's not in your SQL file from the nightly extract, but this is a place to look for errors. Now, when you do have an error in here, it's usually pretty good as far as SQL errors can be, but it'll usually say what area of the extract it is, like it would say that, and then maybe maybe if I typed in Pittum, if I misspelled Pittum or something wrong. Now, again, all these, you see that the actual Pittum is commented out, you don't have to add PITM in there because that's implied on all of these if it's a student extract. So you guys have a lot of changes in here. I'll tell you that, but unless you're having a problem with it, it's one of those things I don't think I would do anything with. But just be aware it is kind of away from baseline.
Well, that's the way I feel about it too, is I don't mess with it unless there's a problem.
Yeah.
So
for a school like yours, usually it's more or less just not bringing over developmental courses or something along those respects. With a 4-year school, a lot of times they'll want to muck with the level codes, bring in maybe multiple level codes if a student's maybe moving into a grad program, but so that's a big part of what we do. But if you look through here, all the different ones, like course link is what happens when you hit when you're in the middle of an audit and you if there's a class that the student doesn't have. Let's see, let me go back to worksheets. You can see what classes they still, when you want to see what they still need. That's not a good example. You can, and it'll have a list of the courses that are scheduled for future terms. All these students have graduated that I've gotten here, looks like. If they don't have courses, if they've already taken everything, course link isn't appropriate. Okay, here's one. So like here, you can click on PE 102 and it'll pull up any future registered sections of PE 102. Now, this is live data, live for tests right now, so you don't probably have any sections in future terms and tests, but in your production systems.
Just one thing on that. I have been getting people over in the counseling area and instruction area asking if we can turn off future terms somehow and only have it show published terms that they have allowed the schedule to be visible in self-service. Because what happens is as they build a year out, the moment they build it, those classes are showing up. And so even though they're still through doing the building process, it looks like we're offering a certain course 2 years from now that they don't want students to see. Is that something we would control here? Or is that a flag somewhere? Oh.
You betcha. Good catch. It can be controlled right in here. You know, you could put some kind of code in here, like here's an example that they're doing here. Now, if you do that kind of thing, you'll have to manually modify this. But
okay, so like when we turn self-service on for a term, this would just be part of that process. We'd turn this on as well for that term.
You could. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you would have to do is find everywhere course link. So I don't remember, like I wouldn't remember that course link was DAP 58. All I would remember is course link. So I would look through this file for course link and see that it's DAP 58. So then look for any other DAP 58. There may be some more in here. I don't remember. Yeah. So here's some more. So wherever you see that, you're going to have to make that change.
Okay.
Good point. Good question. Okay, so this is banner extract.config. It's a when I said earlier about the ship config, that's a place where you could really screw things up. Same goes for this file, but what you're going to screw up is the extract. They'll still see an audit. They'll still see their old audit, but they won't be able to get anything new in. Important file that's now in the database, no longer in on the system. And also be aware there's no version control on this either. So in the old days when it was on the system, you could just rename it, you know, do your own kind of internal version control. Now you're going to have to figure out some kind of way, you know, maybe on a network drive or something, that if Jeff changes this file and then Melody wants to rechange it again or whatever, somehow you guys are going to have some type of version control on this file, because it's now in the database, but only one version is in the database.
And the changes are made through the controller, right?
Through the control, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so going through the whole process, what I would do is download the file to a PC, you know, to a notepad file, make my changes, and then go through the opposite process. Just do a select all,
And then paste it back in.
and paste it back in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me get
Okay.
where was controller? Yeah, just paste it right back in. And there's no reason why you just can't make the changes right here in that window. You just don't have that big a window to use. So,
right.
But I think it has some. I don't know if it's, what was it, DAP 58? Yeah, it does have some finding ability. So here's my find way up here. So funny deal. When this first came in here, which I think was 502, this window was 3 lines wide. You know,
oh wow!
Like, yeah, so that's where we all got into the habit of downloading it. Like, how? And same for shep config. Like, how in the world do they expect us to make a modification? Banner extract, when you make a change in here, and remind me if I don't say it, but when you make a change in here, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to restart anything or anything like that. You just have to run a new extract.
Okay.
So.
Good.
Okay. So I think now would probably be a good time to go ahead and talk about band 80. Let's see if there's anything else I missed. Yeah, so that's actually one of the things that I put in here, Melody. And I think that, let's see. Let's talk about band 80 real quick, because band 80 kind of works hand in hand with this. It's very similar, so the conversation is pretty similar. So this is what I said was kind of sort of SQL code. Band 80 is the same way. And so just as a reminder, band 80 is the file or the way to go get non-standard DegreeWorks data. It's a UCX table. So with band 80, since it's a UCX table, these are all individual records within the table. But what I like to do, and what we, I guess, recommend you do, is send this out to a flat file as well. Okay. And the way you do that, it's a little bit different. You can't just cut and paste here, since each one are separate records. But you've got this import and export utility. And what that does, export sends it out to a flat file. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to press export, and you can see the band 80 file got created. So I'm going to save that in your folder that I have for you guys. I think I've already actually saved it once, but I'll do it again. Close that and open it right here. And I want to take a look at band 80. Okay, so same kind of thing, kind of sort of SQL code, but it's got all this other stuff in there. So sort of like what you've done, what's done in banner extract. The difference is what it's looking for here is, first of all, obviously the first 6 characters are the alpha band 80, band 080. The next set of characters, and it doesn't have to be 6 or 7 characters here. It can actually go out fairly far, is a variable name. And that variable name can be whatever it is you want it to be, anything really. And then it's got some predefined commands after the variable name. So column is similar to your select statement. So basically you can turn this into SQL. And Melody, this is probably what you guys talked about earlier with John. Someone went out to Banner and tested this out for you. What I usually do when I'm creating a band 80 or testing it is, in Notepad++, you can peel off the, like a column. And so I'm just going to copy that and move it down here and just kind of use this as my workspace. So think of this as typing in the command select that. The report that doesn't really have it doesn't really make sense in SQL. What the report record is whether or not this variable has a validation table associated with it. So if it was let's see, the one I did this, okay, so this morning I was telling you I did this for a school. So they wanted catalog year. So you can just kind of see here, but, actually added the validation table later, so that's not a good example. But if there's a banner validation table, now you guys have a pretty fancy, I should say, but you've got a lot of stuff going on in here. So you're pulling in the validation table within your SQL code because you've got multiple things going on in there. If it was only using, say, for example, the maybe the section or anything that just pulls in a term, you could put STV term right there, and it would automatically go out and get that value from that validation table. Tell you what, I've got a big file of band 80s out here. Academic standing, a lot of times we'll do it. So like academic standing, that's a validation table for academic standing. So you can notice I didn't include it anywhere in the SQL. I could have easily done that. I could have just said, added that as a table and just said, and shot term, whatever it is, code, AST code end of term equals the STV ASTD code. You could have done it that way, but this automatically turns the column into a whatever that description is. So in y'all's case here, you just pulled it in because you pulled in a bunch of other stuff, and that's why you didn't need that. And then you got a bunch of then you have the tables. So you have your table that it came from, and then you have a bunch of where statements. So you could actually turn this into something like, instead of saying table from, and then one where statement. And then run this and run it and test it in Banner. So that's one of the nice things about having that DVB script for you. So we can take this, and again, just like in the Banner extract command, the PITM is implied here. And so, if you if you knew what that particular student, or if you had a sample student of a PITM, you could pull it in here. Let me, because I think I did this for y'all. So I think we had some sample. Maybe we didn't. I thought I had a sample student that had a CPOS record. Let me see if I have it in my other notes. Nope, I guess I don't. But so anyway, then you would just, if you wanted to pull it up, you could just say in, you know, something like, you know, whatever that student's PITM is, and run it to see if it would work. And let's just look at this particular student's PITM. Is it going to come back? That was kind of a weird student. Let's find one here. The system's kind of slow right now.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Okay,
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so let's just pull this bill up. And I would bet that's probably not going to find anything, but if this particular student had anything like that, you could run it like that. And somewhere along the line, and there's a good example. I must have a typo in here somewhere. So there's an error on line 8. And I may not have copied everything over. So it may not like. I should like that. Anyway, I don't want to delve on this too much. Oh, I think it looks like hour may have gotten truncated. Yeah, it's right here. Yeah, everything didn't. I didn't copy everything over. So, but anyway, that's a good way to test. So what you're typically going to do, it's the opposite though. So someone's going to ask you, can you start pulling in academic standing, for example? So the thing you have to do is write your SQL to go get academic standing, and then turn that into Band 80 records. That's a common one. Let me do that real quick, because you probably have some students with academic standing, and I've got a good sample for that.
Well, that's probably about the time we call Dave or Dennis and say, hey.
yeah. But so, you know, you could, and a lot of times when you do call one of us, we've got a library of these things out there. And that's kind of what, and honestly, that's kind of what I would recommend, to holler at us and see if we've already done that, because we've got a ton of them out there. And we pass these around all the time too. So it's a good thing to see on the e-communities as well. You'll see people on e-communities all the time ask about, I'm trying to get certain pieces of data from Banner, and they'll even have some of the code out there. So, but I guess the main thing I wanted to tell you is the Band 80 is sort of SQL, but it's sort of not SQL too. So just be aware of that. And that seems to be the story a lot of times with DegreeWorks is they take something and turn it into their own type code. So just be aware of that. Okay. You know, that's not the easiest thing to talk about sometimes. All right. We've gone over, I think, most of these nightly items. Here is the one, Jeff, that I mentioned that starts your CPA processing. The res stop and the res start. We probably don't want that in there right now, but you know, at some point in time, that might be something to do. There is a new command. I'm going to go ahead and add it in here, and it's called TVE restart. So Jeff, you need to make sure that that's now in your list of things to do nightly. What that does, and you'll need to put it in once you do once you go to 503. Don't do it beforehand. But that's for control, web transit. TBE stands for Transit Batch Executor, I think is what it is. So it's kind of like a DAP restart and a web restart, but that has to be it has to be started up. It's a good idea to restart it every night. When you're in transit, Jeff, and you start seeing a bunch of jobs in pending that are just staying in pending out there, there's a good chance that that thing isn't running. So start it back up soon.
Well, maybe that's what's needed on our test system.
I don't think so, because that's not the error we're seeing.
Oh,
There's
okay.
a command called TVE show that shows you whether or not it's running. What you would see is the jobs just sit there and pending, and in fact they'd never run. When you were pressing that circle with the arrows around it, they would start at pending, and then they would start running after that, or they'd be done. If you see them out there all the time, just stay in pending, that's a good idea that that thing is not running. So get that thing going.
Okay.
Okay. And here's that TP. I think we've talked about a good many of these. You probably will never do any of these. I can count a handful of times I've done something like a web stats, but not very often. Now, this one, I'll go ahead and just highlight the ones that I think are important for you, are those right there. And I use these all the time, particularly WebLog. Well, you do that and you start it. You don't. That's not necessarily a script you're going to run all the time. But these two and that guy, all the time. So keep those in your toolbox. Okay. We're just going to keep rolling. So that would give us time to work on some other stuff as we go along. So, okay. Let's, we talked a little bit about that dwenv.config file. That is the file that has a lot of your configuration settings. I think we just, okay. Tell you what, why don't we take about a 15-minute break? It's
yeah,
2
that's
o'clock.
Good. Yeah.
And take about 15 minutes to, it's not quite 2 o'clock, so we'll say start back up at 2:15 or 2:15.
Yeah.
Start back up at 2:15. So
Okay, sounds good.
we'll start in with this stuff.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Everybody back? Your head swimming in banner extract? Jeff, you're on mute.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like drowning, but
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
trying to keep up.
I struggle with this sometimes, this session sometimes, because I don't want to feed you through a fire hose too much, and I know sometimes you get a glazed look over your. I go, what in the heck is all this stuff? So,
no, but it's good to get it though.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
If you have questions, slow me down. I found a student that I went in and ran that. I fixed that SQL that we had, and I ran a student that had some of those CPOS classes. And so this is what it looks like in the student data report. So it comes back with 2 classes, and see it's how we concatenated the term with the class, and then the code on the class. Now, Melody, help me out. I don't show it in the student view itself.
Well, because this is a clone of our test instance.
Okay.
Of our old test instance. So
yeah, because you saw it down there. It was, oh no, there it is. Elective class is not allowed, and elective class is allowed.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So that's where we were trying to capture the ECA.
Right here. This is it right here.
Right.
Okay, so you must have some code in here that grabs.
I don't know if it was looking at Stepos score or what it was, but it's been so many months already now. Time flies. But that was just a way of letting them know if it was fall through but still counted.
Because a lot of schools, and I guess we didn't do it with you guys. They wanted to put something up right under the header to mark.
I thought we had something under the header too. So maybe just right that this is just the whole clone
thing's
thing's
not
older.
There. I wonder if we're looking at. But we localized this for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to say it was at the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking tomorrow we would start out with localizations, and this is probably a good one to look at. Yeah. And because I don't think it's been properly done to put it in here yet. So this will be a really good example to look at. So.
Okay.
But this, from the student data report, again, student data report is what's in the RAD RAD table. So, you know, I could have also gone in here, you know, gone through the DB command and
test question RAD 30.
Yeah, well, RAD, that's right, RAD 30, but it's also the RAD table. So, but you know, you could have selected, you know, you describe RAD. That's what I'm thinking. And I don't know why your student data report takes a while to draw. That's weird. But RAD report detail. And it would RAD report detail. And it would have this information for this particular student. So he's got 2 classes out there. See, I think those 2 need to be displayed. And we're not displaying them. Could somebody check that on production?
Sure.
And I'll put the ID in the chat window so you can just copy it.
Yeah, I pulled them up. I don't see it. It's still, there's nothing at the top where the header is.
Okay.
Nothing at the bottom.
Okay. All right. So maybe they shouldn't have something. I don't know. Interesting. Okay. I guess, Melanie, if you don't mind, as I guess a homework, sorry to assign you homework, no one else. Would you find a student in production, maybe ask financial aid or someone of a student that we can use tomorrow as a test student that should have some courses that did not get paid for?
Okay.
So we can make sure that's working correctly. Okay, so just want to spend a little bit more time talking about some of these files on the servers, and probably stop there today then, because I think we'll start over with localizations tomorrow, and then and after localizations, spend time talking about reporting. And I really like to spend a little extra time talking about reporting.
Okay.
Through that. So that would be that kind of a good natural break. Okay, let's talk about this dwnv.config file. I mentioned it has the CPU count in there. Let me hop out of here. In your test system, it's usually at the top level. This file gets called in whenever DegreeWorks gets started, dwenv.config. It's got a ton of stuff in there. A lot of your environment variables are set. In here is where it sets up the databases. Usually the DBA will set this up for you, and I think this automatically gets created during the install, but if for some reason you guys did not want to call it that, you could modify this file. This is that environment variable. Let's see, we haven't gotten quite, okay, there's your, if you ever have I go to this file if I can't find something. I mean, that's probably where I use this file the most. If I don't know, like, man, I just can't figure out where anything's loaded. This file is a lot of times it's a good reference to kind of help you find where things are. We had an issue at a school the other day. They didn't know what the database user was, and here it is. Here is the DegreeWorks user in the Banner database. Now, so that's when I said earlier today that you may have to do a select on or do a grant select access to a user for a table, for a user to a table. That's the user that I'm referring to. You can have in here, it has all of the number of DAP 08s and DAP 10, which is usually 1. Usually you have several Web 07s. You guys have 20. That's probably not ever needed to change any of that. Anything else in here? It's exciting. The emails are in here. We saw that. That's the new part of the command, all this area for the new transit. Again, probably won't have to, Ed, when he's doing your install, will probably get all that done for you. And here's the big one with the CPU count. However, that's gotten moved to somewhere else, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. Okay, and then here, primaries. Okay, so that's that file. Talked about that directory already. That's where your outputs go. Again, I'd check that RAD 30 periodically. Make sure it's running, make sure it's not erroring out. Not so much the DAP 22, but the DAP 30s definitely. Okay, this is just kind of further along in there. On your web server, it's where your Tomcat is probably residing. This is where you would stop and start Tomcat, the dashboard, stop and start the gateway, and all those things. Pretty straightforward. You know, just okay. Good. Thank you, Melody. All right. Stop this just. And I guess, Jeff, you have access to do all these things. I know you stopped transit earlier today, so shouldn't have to muck with those scripts. Just basically run them and not run them. So, or run the start, run the stops. Again, same for your web apps. They're all going to be on your web server. So the web server is really running the apps. It's going over there to your admin server to hit your setup settings. Okay, let's talk about system settings. Now, I know I've talked a little bit about controller. We've talked about the users, the groups, and then the UCX configuration settings. There's a bunch of other settings in here now that typically you set once and never have to go back to, but there's many of your URLs. I'm going to click for refer. So things like your allowable refer, that's a hard thing to say from my Texas mouth, allowable URLs. I know this is one thing Ed had some issues with that we had to work with. Same type of thing. If you want to edit any of these, press the greater than sign and then actually edit with a pencil. And then you can see the box is not very big, but it includes a lot of things. You can always copy it out to a text file and load it back in if you want to. So that's always an option. Many, and it's, again, not all of them, but it's many of these settings. If you change one of these settings, you've got to do at least a web restart and a DAP restart. Some you have to do a Tomcat restart. And it's weird. Some you don't have to do anything, but it's a little bit, I can't tell you exactly on a lot of these. It just depends on which one it is. Tomorrow, when we talk about localizations, they've moved many of the localizations into here. One of the first things that you have to do to even start localizations is to turn them on. So one of your California counterpart schools today is having a big issue with their localizations, and so what I recommended them to do is just turn them off, and you can do it. You can just turn these variables off right here. They're just yes, no variables or true, false variables. Turn them off here, and it turns off all your localizations, which is kind of nice. It's kind of like the big switch, to turn your power off, and that's kind of what this is. So, but we'll talk about more of this tomorrow when we're talking about doing our localization. But you can see these are just variables. Most of them have yes or no, true, false. Some ask you to put in a URL. Some then actually take information like banner extract. Again, you can type in just a portion of the word. I never try to remember any of these, but and then pull up the variable. Okay. So under the configuration tab, you have both UCX tables and these other system settings that you need to be aware of. Most of these, you turn them on and you leave them on forever, or turn them off and you leave them off. But every once in a while, you may be asked to do something here. on the student educational planner, they're right. Much of the student planner, when you type in planner, I mean, there's more. Much of the planner stuff is in here. And we haven't really gone through with you guys all the different new planner stuff. I think that's coming up. But most of their settings are with a system setting now, and most of them are true false. You know, here's an example. You guys know what course link is now, but in the planner, you can turn course link on or off. You've got it set to true. Now, I don't understand why it says this on here, and it will on all of them. You would think that, okay, the default's true. If I want to make it false, I would create another record and it would be called local or something else. That's not the case. If you were going to turn it off, you just set it to false, and it would say default false. So kind of a weird way that they do that. And I hope that changes at some point in time, because there is no, again, version control. And what happens a lot of times is as you're trying to fix a problem or whatever, you go in and turn a bunch of these things off or on, and you fix the problem, and you don't know which one actually fixed it, and then you have to back out all those things. So what I usually do is I'll have a spreadsheet that especially working with a planner, and I'll have a list of the things that are the defaults and which ones I changed and which ones I didn't change, and use that. So unfortunately, there's not a good version control on that. Again, most of these things are the things that Ed or whoever is doing your install will set up. Just a reminder though, shep config is one that you'll want to modify, and then also possibly banner extract. And there's the name of it. This one is an interesting one. This kind of starts out your CPA process. Let's just see if that thing is set. I didn't look on there if it's set or not. I think I got a space in there. You got it set to default. So the way you're set up here in test, that's probably a good thing for it right now. So. But once we want to start building reporting information, we'll need to turn that to on. Now, that doesn't do anything except kind of like open the gate. That's all it does. It doesn't start the process. It doesn't create any audits or anything like that. It's just kind of saying, okay, you come in, you can start doing things, but it's not going to do anything. So just by us setting that to true, nothing is going to happen. We still have to do other things. So what I want to do now for the rest of the day is take a look at your shep config file. And I think I'd like to talk you through maybe making some changes in this file. We can do it in test and run students through, and then run advisors through, and each of you through, and go from there. That sound okay with you, Jeff? Or?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. My first inclination right away is delete all these usernames, but I'm going to leave that in there, Jeff, and just tell you probably delete all those usernames and your IDs out of there. But
okay.
Not that it makes any difference, but and I guess and I can see why you had them in there, just to make sure we know who everybody is. So
right.
What I would say is that we need to give these people scribe access through controller.
Yeah. Part of it is that part of my concern is the day that we cut over to production.
Yeah.
We won't have a lot of time to go in and make manual changes. And so I'm kind of thinking to keep that the way it is, and then we'll go in and clean up the production side.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Didn't we? That's scheduled for a weekend.
Yeah, that's in early December.
Early December, right? Okay.
Yeah.
There's changes you're going to have to make, anyways.
Okay.
But you're right. I mean, that's certainly a good point, and that may be the thing to do is we wait until we do that, and then go back, and you can always go back and change this file.
Right.
In production. So with that in mind, you're probably right.
Yeah, because I just don't want to have too much to do in that short period of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's not a good way to like take a group and copy it from one instance to another instance. Which would be nice if you could you build your groups like in test, and then take that whole group and copy it to production.
Exactly. Yeah, that'd be really nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
How are you doing? Where are you doing your scribe block changes? Are you changing those in production or in test right now? Do you know how they're doing?
In production.
Production.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not going to have to do anything new there.
Yeah. Because at one time we had both production and test running on the same server. Gotcha. And that caused some problems. And so now we've separated out 2 servers. For the upcoming upgrade, it's going to be 2 separate servers for test and 1 for production.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the best is to do your scribe in test, obviously, and then copy it to production. But honestly, most schools don't do it that way. It's causes extra work a lot of times. But
yeah.
And there's not a real good way. We came up with a somewhat of a procedure. There's not a good way to just take, without doing the old copy and paste, but there's not a good way to just take a set of blocks and copy it from one instance to the next. Although they've got 2 commands. There's a doubt block unload command, and then there's another one. I can't remember what it is now, but I did that, and I then went into Notepad Plus and edited the file and then did a load back, and that seemed to work. But we had a group of prerequisites for a school.
Yeah, I think once we done once we have done the upgrade and we have a good solid test environment where it works, then that's the time that I'm going to start pushing to have the to have the scribing tested within a test instance. But right now we've had performance issues with having both production and test running on the same server.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, and so sometimes there has been times where our test instance has been shut down because of some performance issues.
Okay.
But once we're past the upgrade, then we'll have 2 separate servers, 1 test, one in production, and should be a little bit better test environment. So.
Yeah, and since you're starting kind of over on the test environment, you can clone the scribe code down into it.
Right.
And then,
that's right.
and then do a better job of keeping it in sync. That's always the hardest part, is to keep your scribe in sync.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not sure about all these.
Yeah, all that SCP stuff. That's gonna.
Yeah, see,
Well, it's already commented out anyway.
yeah, I know. Is it? Let's see, 356,995. Who is that? Trinidad. So it's like they're the only ones that have access to what if. That was interesting. And then I know, as the older versions, you probably did most of your stuff in here instead of chip entry, and it was easier to do it here. And that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, this college is not having any. No, it's hard not having it. To have enough people to have eyes on it all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and if you don't look at it every day, you kind of forget how the best way to do it is. I'm just sitting here trying to think of what you didn't definitely need to go forward with to mitigate the amount of time in your production clone. So definitely we'd want you know what, Jeff, maybe what we ought to do is, can you grab the ship config file off of production and let's take a look at it?
It should be the same. It should be the same.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think it's just a copy. And that hasn't been modified in a while.
Okay. But I know, so what I'm thinking is, I know those things that I added, you've got to have those into production. We have to add those into production.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
So
yep.
we need to make sure. So we could just run a compare real quick between the two. Just to kind of be on the safe side. Alfonso, you have an interesting background there. It looks like you're moving around with your doing.
Alfonso is into the vinyl business.
I see that.
He's got several hundred.
It's just part of my collection. Yeah.
You just have to record it turning your camera the other way, so that way it fills your whole background and not like portrait. I'm in my pretend home with a beautiful tree that I wish grew out here but doesn't.
Yeah. So can you find that chip? Are you going to send that to me, Jeff, that chip config?
Well, what I'll do is I'll just move it over to that server that you're on.
Okay.
And,
all right.
And I can put that.
Just in case anything got put into production, because we want to use your production as the guide, and so and then add these few things that I added just to.
That's a very good point. I fully agree. So let's see here.
When you go live, it's little stuff like that really takes time, and even these configuration changes, anything that Ed or I did or Dave,
right,
we'll need to make sure and get that into your new system. we'll talk tomorrow about the localizations. They're pretty easy now to move them to the new system, to your prod system. So we'll walk through that tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Let me go back and look at. Anything. So I did a report back when we set it up. There's a list of.
Okay, so I put it in your, well, I put it in the DW admin home
Okay.
on the server. And it's just called SHP, I ship config from prod. That should be, yeah, it's right there.
There it is. Yeah, right there. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so that's from the current prod.
Okay. So let's take a look here. Oh, that one right there. That all looks the same. If everyone then do DegreeWorks, SDXML, was removes. Okay. So you're giving students just, I'm just making a statement here. The students have access to that refresh button. That's this button
Yeah,
right
is
here.
Is that common or is that uncommon?
That's not common, no.
Oh,
Yeah. That may cause some performance issues. Now, you never know if students, but if they learn what that button is, they could sit there and just keep pressing it. You typically give that to advisors or your counselors, but not to students.
Well, yeah, the counselors have it, but they were complaining that students were saying that their screen wasn't refreshed.
Okay.
Wasn't refreshed, and so the counselors wanted the students to have the button.
Okay.
So.
Well, just tell them it's going to slow things down. So,
yeah.
I do get a lot of complaints about being slow, Jeff. I mean, is this one of those things that we think might help if we turn it off? Or do we think that's other reasons?
Well, that's something that the counselors need to decide because I'm not going to get run over in a parking lot by the counselors.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen.
Yeah. I just feel like they want to run us over because of how slow it is. They constantly complain about how slow it is. So.
Well, hopefully that improves with the upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you're splitting out your systems too, that should help.
Yeah.
All right. So you advisors, we don't really need this. We can go ahead and update. We can go ahead and update it, but we don't really need that since you don't have any advisors. We determined that fact.
Oh, okay.
These are the ones we really want to check. So ADVX. Okay, so here's a difference here. They currently don't have SEP ADV. And so now, are they using the planner now? They're not.
No, they're using the classic planner.
The old planner. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll have to load this back in for you, but I'm just going to put today's date on there. So, and what I'm trying to point out here, Jeff, is that group right now is not currently in your SHIP config. So this is exactly what I was looking for to make. So when we go live, are they gonna be able to use the new planner right away? Is that the plan? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is one that's not in their current one, and so we'll need to make sure. And I would suggest we just copy this file into production.
Okay.
The one here on the right. So
okay.
And so we want to make sure we don't miss anything here on the left that we may have put in. I don't think we have, but just to be on the safe side. So.
Okay, sounds good.
So 32 ST refresh. Let me ask you this: does your counselors, do they use the PDF button a lot? I know that's kind of a hypothetical type question, but
I think some of them do. I think quite a few of them do. I mean, I don't know exactly how many.
We still struggle to pull away from paper at our campus.
Okay.
We're just now using Adobe Sign because of COVID, and that's been a transition, to say the least.
Okay.
So,
I
would not be surprised if they didn't print like crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'm old. I'll print a lot too. So Melody, give us a little break. Give us old folks a break. But no, I do print, and we've got some consultants that don't even own a printer. Like, how do you live? But anyway, I asked that question for a reason. The new responsive dashboard does not have a PDF button, and so yeah.
It doesn't have a PDF print.
It does not have okay. And I need to clarify that statement. There's no PDF button. Now there's still you can still print, but you use the Windows. If you most PDF. Windows have a PDF functionality within Windows. Now the problem is it's not that nice printout that you have now. It's basically when you print a web page. That's kind of what it looks like. So that's been a turnoff for a lot of schools. I just want to tell you. So if you're really a big printing school, the responsive dashboard may be problematic. So.
Okay. All right.
I think that Illusion is getting a lot of flack over that. So hold on. Things may change with that respect. Okay. So you're removing this key. So that's the key that shows only your own student. So you're saying advisors can see any student.
Right.
Okay. Okay. And I know I added these to this file and I didn't document it like I should have. These are two new, they're not new keys. They're not new keys, but again, it's kind of like earlier I said something about a key being explicit. That's what these two are. You have to explicitly say, add these keys now, or a faculty member or an advisor can't type in an ID. you can do a search, but you can't type an ID, and so that's important. It was kind of weird that they didn't include those. So, okay, and then all these we'll need to add all them. Okay, the reg, not as important for the reg, but SRN reg, SEP reg. That's commented out in the old system, but that's okay. We'll undo it here. Petitions. Yeah, so they add that, added as defined. Same with those two. Okay. See, so you're giving, do you have any scribers that are not reg users?
We only have one scriber.
And they're probably a reg user. Who's that? What's their ID?
That'd be Dixie.
Oh yeah, I've talked to Dixie. What's her last name?
Krim, K-R-I-M-M.
That's right, yeah.
K-R-I-M.
Okay.
Yep.
Duplicate of Dixie too. And she is a reg user already. Okay. So,
Oh, okay.
And by that, and the reason I was looking at that, so those are the appropriate ones. So that would mean that.
Well, the other one that we need to check on is that there's supposed to be 2 scribers, so we probably should set up the other one as well. And that's Gabe Gonzalez, Gonzalez.
And would you say his first name, Gabe?
Yep, Gabriel. Oh, there's 2.
There's several.
Oh, several Gabriels.
Wow, a lot of Gabriels. Unfortunately, it doesn't give your.
It's probably the 318.
It's a 600 106 or G00 600 106.
He is reg. Okay, good.
Yep. Okay.
So right now we're giving everybody that's a reg user scribe access.
Well,
Which is good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You can either do it that way, or scribe is one of those keys that a lot of schools will give it directly to a user, since not many people do all the scribing. But
well, I think that's what we want to do. Because at one time scribing was in the A&R area.
okay.
So that's probably reflective of that.
Okay.
But yeah, we should just have it direct to only certain users.
To those two, yeah.
Yeah, to those 2.
Okay. Well, something to think about here. Okay. I'm just going to make a note of that.
Okay.
Scribe to Dixie and Gabe. But again, going back to what you said earlier, let's don't change it now. But when we go live, I think you probably should do that.
Well, and we would still have access to, right, Jeff? Like at least me and Matt, just in case.
Yes. Yep.
Since we're the only other ones that have scribed.
Yep.
I mean,
That's true.
it's only in a pinch. It's only whenever she's just completely stuck. But
I appreciate that.
Okay. Okay. All right. I think we're at a good spot for the day. And we'll start tomorrow with the localization. So localizations, I'll break it up into kind of what we did now for the classic version. Not getting too deep into it, but at least give you an idea of the files. Melody already mentioned that she likes to program in XSL, so we'll show you a little bit of that. So, and then the difference in the responsive dashboard. And I think you're going to find like, oh, wow, that's all you have to do in a responsive dashboard. That's crazy. And then the second part of that, so it's really, I guess, two parts there. And then the third part would be, what do we have to do to go to production?
Right. Yep.
And the plan just being for the classic dashboard and production, but we'll walk through all the files that got changed and how to do it. And now that's what we'll do. And whichever it's Dave or I, whichever one is planning on, I think we were both going to be around that weekend for you, but
right. And actually the weekend of, the week of October 5th, I think we're doing kind of like a little.
Yeah. Okay. I thought there was something sooner than December. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just like a little dry run.
Okay.
Because Ed wants to do an export import onto a new production server, just so that we can verify all the linkages after all the upgrades are done.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's another thing that kind of it's a gotcha. Is those URLs can be kind of a bear for the DBAs to make sure they have caught each one of those.
Yeah.
And to make sure you guys have them open, have ports opened and stuff. So.
Well, that, and also make sure that the single sign-on is all intact.
Yeah.
When we hopefully bring all that back up in December.
Okay.
At the real time. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's what we'll talk about tomorrow, and that should take most of the morning, and then talk about reporting.
Okay.
So.
Very good.
So. Any
Sounds
questions
good.
or anything you need to add or? You're going to go home and dream about Banner extracts. I know we talked about it a lot.
Same old.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we can get that bridge working again, or better, I mean, having the virtual machines down to just one and bumping that up, maybe that should help.
Yeah.
To get that
I'd be interested to see the time difference in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
When do you think you'll bring the system down? And you didn't.
Well, I can probably bounce the server tonight.
Okay.
I mean, not the whole server, but the database and
the Tomcat.
And
yeah. Yeah, you might want to try that before. When does your thing kick off? Like at midnight or so, or 1 o'clock or something like that? I forgot to look when you pulled up that cron job.
Yeah, I think it's in the morning, around 7. Well, no, hold on, let me see.
No, it's going to probably be like it.
Yeah.
I'd guess like at midnight or 1 o'clock or something like that.
Oh, at 10 o'clock.
10? Okay.
Yeah. 10
So maybe if you could do it before then.
Yeah. Yeah. Try.
You're probably having it run that early because it's taking you that long.
Exactly. It is.
It ran 8 hours, and see, it's only going to be ready by 6 o'clock. So.
Yep.
Yeah, we need to figure that out. That's problematic. So.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's been a pain. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay. Well, we'll talk to you guys in the morning, and thank you for everything, your attentiveness and questions. So
all right.
See you,
Well, thank you, Dennis.
Okay. All righty.
In the morning.
Thank you. See you tomorrow. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.